Welcome to Maybe Farm Historic Site. The story of New Netherlands' cash crop often begins with furs, but the fur trade period was actually very short. By the middle of the 1630s, Kilian van Rensselaer, the founder of Rensselaerwyck, sets up the idea of growing wheat here in the colony to feed the thousands of Africans enslaved on sugar plantations in Brazil. That decision by the company will create a wave of economic growth for the colony that will last for 200 years. It is also an ingredient that Northern Europeans use in so many ways, from pancakes to waffles, breads, to small cakes that we now call cookies, to wonderful puff pastry and so much more. But it is an ingredient that does not exist in Central West Africa. It will be a challenge for the newly enslaved cooks to master the finickiness of wheat. So today, we're going to prepare the best pancakes. This receipt or recipe comes from The Sensible Cook, a book that was brought here in the 17th century, and it was translated by Peter G. Rose. The best pancakes is a little different than the pancakes that we use today. They are more like crepes. And the creator of the recipe says, don't use milk, it makes them tough. So the batter was made with water. Very simple, common ingredients: eggs, flour, water. The difference is the spice that will be added: cinnamon, nutmeg, mace, cloves. Wealth that will move its way from just a little bit to a lot by the time we get to the 18th century. So join me as I finish up this batter, which I've already made. I'm going to pour it into my pitcher, and from here we'll make our way over to the hearth and make up a pancake. Throughout New York, you will find in many historic sites pancake pans. They speak to the popularity of the dish. You will find them in historic Dutch paintings, as well as New York historic sites. The long handle allows the cook to heat the pan and keep it at a nice temperature while the pancake cooks. Red clay stoneware was often used for dishes, so here we have a variety of examples, including a common pitcher that would have been used for, say, the water for our pancakes. Sugar didn't come in bags. It actually came in cones, and the cones came in different sizes and grades. The best pancakes recipe suggests that you put sugar on top of your pancakes. This is long before they started using maple syrup. These are sugar nips. The sugar is hard as a rock, so you would nip or cut chunks of the sugar off and then use a mortar and pestle to pound it to be granulated sugar. Redware bowls came in all shapes and sizes and were commonly used for cooking. Butter is the dominant fat, or the #1 fat, used in cooking for everything, for putting on your pancakes, to frying things in a pan, to making pastry. Butter has a great relationship and a long relationship with wheat work. Another common style plate. Knives and spoons are often made out of pewter, and this one has a bone handle. So we have our batter all ready, and to make it easier, we're going to pour it right here into a pitcher. And then we'll head over to the hearth. Yum. We can either grate a little sugar, or perhaps you're like me and would prefer some jam, but enjoy your pancake.
So wheat was chosen as a cash crop for this area because it would largely feed enslaved populations who were laboring on sugar plantations in the Caribbean or perhaps in South America. And there were goods being produced like sugar or sometimes citrus fruits, things that were not being grown in New York, brought up here and sold to tenant farmers who were the population of manors like Phillipsburg Manor, many of whom were enslavers as well. Wheat was easy enough to work with as a cash crop in terms of the fact that once it was planted, very little attention was needed to preserving it other than perhaps occasional weeding and protecting it from animals that might come into eating the areas that could be fenced off and protected. Wheat had a short planting and harvesting season, and over the winter that ground would be covered and that wheat would be kind of protected and growing. And then in the spring and summer, it would be harvested using tools like sickles and brought to a mill like Phillipsburg Manor. So other times of the year, when that wheat wasn't needing attention, enslaved laborers could be working on other tasks and fulfilling other duties for their enslavers. A miller might also be a baker, or an enslaved person who is laboring as a sailor might also work in a warehouse or on a dock. So they were forced to learn different tasks and perform different types of labor throughout the year. I think students would find the process here interesting because you get to see basically every step of the growing process, maybe not in a single visit, but we grow the grain here, we harvest it, we will thresh and winnow the grain in our barn, and in the mill see how the seeds get ground up and turned into flour. And not many people might be exposed to that kind of process today, but here you can see that happening here in real time on a visit in person.
Tenant farmers would come here in a horse-drawn wagon 300 years ago, and they would have bags of wheat. Each bag weighed approximately 50 pounds. Rather than wearing out their shoulders, bringing one bag in at a time, everything would be stored above us in what we call the grain floor. And then we're able to offload the grain into the hopper here to process that grain into high-quality flour. Using gravity saves your shoulders. For example, they would step over here, the miller. He would actually open up this particular piece of equipment here, and as you can see, the wheat berries are falling down. And once we have enough in the hopper here, we can close it off, and then we can go downstairs and begin processing that wheat into a high-quality flour. That saved the shoulders of the workers in here. Imagine if they were working and they had to put it on their shoulders, and they're doing 5,000 pounds of flour per day. 6 days a week, they would not be able to work here no more than 1 or 2 days. Millers actually process 2 flours here, wheat and corn. They're able to do that by actually elevating a stone inside of here going up and down. The bottom stone doesn't move. It's called the bed stone. The top stone in this enclosure is called the running stone. That's the one that's going to be turning around. It's going to be grinding up the wheat. When we make wheat flour, we want the 2 stones to be very, very close together. When we want cornmeal flour, we actually raise this top stone and give it more space. We're able to do that by using this piece of equipment here called a Tamron rod, and we lower it down, and we put a wedge in it. The reason for the wedge is to make sure you cannot wear out your body. You cannot hold this heavy stone inside of this enclosure here. It weighs over 2,500 pounds. Very, very heavy. What I'm going to do now is start the mill running. It runs with the force of water, water-powered mill. That wheel outside there will begin to turn, and when it turns, it's going to be pushed with water underneath the wheel called an undershoot. I'm going to turn the wheel on now and can we see the process of wheat flour being produced. I'm turning this block and tackle. I'll just keep turning it. Very heavy gate that's in front of the wheels going up, allowing water to push my wheel outside. as you can see, here's the product. This is the cornerstone of the wealth of this family, wheat flour. That's what they're going to be trading in the Caribbean to actually feed the slaves working the plantations down there.